Hi, I'm Ed Knights, president of Theater 3, and I'd like to welcome you back to another edition of Welcome to the Theater. This time I'll be interviewing the cast and the director of the play that we are now doing, which is called The Curious Savage. Tickets are on sale at 978-263-9070. The show opens on January 18th. And it runs for 2 weekends with tickets available for all performances. The performances are on Friday and Saturday evenings at 8 p.m. and at 2 p.m. on both Sundays, the 20th and the 27th. I'd like to welcome for our first interview Elizabeth Harmon. Welcome to the Theater.
Thank you, Ed.
And you've been here before, huh?
I have been here before, yes.
And what show were you in that you were interviewed for?
Actually, I was directing.
You were directing? Okay.
I was directing Words in the short plays.
Was that one of your first directing experiences, or had you directed before?
That was one of my first, yes.
Wow. So tell us how you got started in the theater. What was the first thing you ever did?
Oof, I think the first thing I ever did is I took an acting singing workshop at Indian Hill in Littleton, and we used to do scenes. So the first things I did were just short scenes, and then from that we actually put on a performance of Into the Woods.
Oh, wow.
A full-scale performance.
That's a big leap.
It was a big leap. It
Yeah.
was a huge leap.
Yeah.
But I got to play Little Red Riding Hood, which is a fun role.
Oh, wow. Do you have like a favorite role as you think back over the years?
You know, I have a couple of favorites, and one of my favorites is Melissa Gardner in Love Letters. Now, Love Letters seems like such a funky little play because it seems very static.
Yes.
But the challenge with Love Letters is going from a child to a teenager to a young adult to an older adult. And you don't have any acting that you do, you have to do it vocally. And so it's a really good challenge and a great play to do.
Is there a role that you sort of a dream role that you'd like to do that you haven't had a chance to yet?
I think that I've always wanted to play Marilla in Anne of Green Gables. That's one I've thought would be great fun to do. I've already done one of the ones I've always wanted to do, which was Abby Brewster in Arsenic and Old Lace, because that also is another one of my really favorite fun roles.
Tell us about your character in Curious Savage.
My character in Curious Savage is Miss Willie, and I'm a nurse. And Miss Willie is a good character to do because she has a range of emotions. Her job is to keep everybody in line, doing what they're supposed to do when they're supposed to do it. And so that's the kind of, regimented side of Miss Willie.
It sounds sort of military.
A little bit military, a little bit, it's the time to do this, it's the time to do that. Oh, come on, everybody get moving, that kind of thing. But there's also a tender side of Miss Willie. She's very compassionate. And when people are upset, she knows how to calm them down and to bring them back. She has interesting relationships and different relationships with all of the patients in the cloisters.
So there's one side of her that's the sergeant, and the other one that's definitely the caring side of the nurse.
The caring side of the nurse, yes.
And I guess, like the sergeant, she isn't the boss, but she probably knows better what's going on than the boss might. So
I think she has a really good clue. I also think she's really good at reading people, because I think she has to be in how she functions in the cloisters.
So this play is set in the 50s. Have you done plays before that were set in that era? Or?
Not in the 50s. I've done plays set in the 40s, but not the 50s. So this is a new era.
Great. Well, Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure interviewing you.
Thank you, Ed.
Yeah, sure. Next, I'd like to welcome Bill Harmon, who, as you might guess, is the husband of Elizabeth, who we just interviewed.
Guilty as charged.
Welcome to the theater, Bill.
Thank you, Ed.
Tell us how you got your start in theater.
The first thing I ever did in theater was in my senior high school play. You Can't Take It With You. I played Paul Sycamore? I think it's Paul Sycamore, the fireworks manufacturer.
And would you say you caught the bug at that point?
No,
or,
I never did anything again until until a performance of The Man Who Came to Dinner at Concord Players. That's probably 30 or 40 years later.
And now you do a fair amount on stage.
As much as I can, yeah.
And I know you're quite musical as well. Tell us about the musical side of your performing.
I've been in some musicals, classical, typical musicals, Into the Woods and Sweeney Todd, Musical Chairs, directed by yourself.
Yes.
And then pretty regular appearances in the chorus of Opera 51, performing at 51 Walden.
And I guess sometimes you are like the backup for some of the major performers in case their voice goes.
Yes, I've been lucky enough to do that twice.
What is that role called in the
It's
opera?
a cover.
A cover.
So you have principals, and then you have covers if the principal can't go on.
So you've got to sing some great arias then.
It's been fun.
Great.
It's been a lot of fun.
It sounds like it. Tell us about your character in the show, in
Well,
Carrie Savage.
My character is Samuel Savage. He's one of the three siblings and children of Mrs. Savage. And he's a bumbling, unsuccessful judge who's had the most decisions ever reversed. So he's not good at what he does.
So have you ever played any character that was like him, that was kind of like...
Yes, I forget the name of the character, but it was the bumbling person in, the Oscar Wilde...
One of the Oscar Wilde.
One of the Oscar Wilde things.
Yeah.
A typical bumbling colonel, English colonel type person.
So that one was with a British accent.
Yes, it was.
And you bumble differently as a Brit?
It's pretty much the same.
Okay.
Pretty much what you see is what you get.
Got it. Have you ever had to do any other accents besides standard British?
No.
No. But of course you're singing in other languages.
Yes.
So,
Well,
yeah.
my attempt at other languages, yes.
Yeah, do you usually know pretty well exactly what it means, what you're singing when you're up there?
Well, you have to know that.
Otherwise you couldn't act the part.
What I struggle with is pronunciation.
Well, I imagine. And I suppose there's probably some audience that are gonna catch you on that, but most perhaps won't.
The audiences are always kind.
Right. Is there any particular role that you would like to do that you haven't done yet, that you keep looking out to see if somebody's going to be doing that play? Or?
The role that I would like to do, that I've never done, that I will never be able to do, would be King Lear.
Oh my gosh.
I could bumble my way through that.
Got it. Do you have plans for another show that you're going to be auditioning for after this one ends?
No, I don't. I've got my eyes open. We'll see what pops up on the horizon.
And is there another Opera 51 coming up?
There is. In June we'll be doing full-scale Carmen, full orchestra.
Wow.
So we're looking forward to that. Should be exciting for everybody.
When does the rehearsal start for that?
They'll start in February.
Great. So I really appreciate your coming down and letting us interview you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ed.
Okay. And now I'd like to welcome Diane Zimmerman Decker to Welcome to the Theater.
Thank you, Ed.
And Diane, tell us how you got started in theater. What was the first thing you did, whether it was as a child or in high school or whenever?
Well, as an adult,
Uh-huh.
when my daughter wanted to try out for a play with Acton's Open Door Theater,
Yeah.
she was a little concerned about going by herself.
Uh-huh.
And because Open Door Theater encourages both adults and children to try out for their shows, I told her that I'd go with her and just be there to encourage her and try out with her. Well, we both got cast in the show, and we had a wonderful time, and I got hooked.
What show was it?
It was Music Man.
And were you both in a chorus?
We were
kind of
both in
things?
the
Good,
ensemble.
good.
Yes,
so you got
we
to
were.
sing, you got to dance a little bit.
Yes, and I loved it. Yes.
And what have you been in since then?
Well, I've been in 9 shows with Open Door.
Wow.
And then right after we did Music Man, I was so excited about theater that I went over to Theater 3 and tried out for Wizard of Oz. I was cast in the ensemble there with 3 different roles, little roles.
Wow.
My favorite one was being an apple tree. And you were the Tin Man
Yes.
in Wizard of Oz.
Yes.
And you threw an apple to me.
I threw it right to, did you catch, did the tree catch it?
I caught it every time, thank goodness.
Okay, okay, yeah, that was quite a costume that I was wearing too.
Yes.
Mine wasn't quite as restricted as yours.
Right.
Which wasn't gonna
But
go
I
far.
loved being a tree.
Great, great. Well, I love being the Tin Man and getting a new heart every performance.
Every
from
performance,
the
right.
Wizard.
That's
Yeah.
right. I was also in a play at the Stratton Theater in Fitchburg, Dr. Cook's Garden. I played Nurse B.
Oh,
And I also was in City of Angels at Theater 3. I was in the ensemble there.
so you played a nurse one time, and now you're playing the
A doctor, yes,
yeah.
a psychiatrist.
And what is the psychiatrist like? You're a psychiatrist in the 50s.
It's a psychiatrist in the 50s. Well, I've been doing some research about what it was like from in the 1950s for psychiatrists.
Yes.
One of the things was after World War II, after all the traumas, there was a great increase in mental illness during those years.
Yeah.
But, however, there was also a lack of tolerance for people in society who showed different behaviors or anything unusual or unique. And families would say, we shouldn't air our dirty linen in public. And so there was a tendency for families to put family members away in sanatoriums, sometimes for several years. I also found out that psychiatrists were shifting in their methods that they were using. Instead of a sort of a dispassionate approach, a Freudian approach where the psychiatrist would sit in a chair away from the patient who was lying on a couch and just ask questions, they started to believe that the only way to make change was to form a strong relationship with the patients. And I think that we see all of these trends in this play. We see families who have put their family members away, sometimes for years.
Yes.
And we also see a doctor who cares very much for her patients, and she seems to know them pretty well. Yeah. And I find that Dr. Emmett tries to sort of balance the world within the sanatorium with the realities of the outside world. She tries to balance the needs of the patients and the outside. And she cares for her patients very much. She does not tolerate any disrespect or mistreatment of them.
So that must feel good.
I like playing this role. I think she's quite a character.
And in some ways almost ahead of her time, because she is kind of challenging the pieces of the mental health field at that date that are now no longer at all acceptable.
That's
and were
right.
kind of standard in the 40s and only beginning to fade in the 50s.
Yes, that's right.
And also at Theater 3, you've been very much involved in a couple of other roles. Tell us about what those are.
Yes, well, I've managed the box office for 12 years, taking reservations before the shows and then working in the box office during the performances. And this past July, I joined the board of directors as a co-treasurer.
Thank goodness, huh? Yeah, it's really good to have you as our treasurer.
Well,
We really
thank you.
appreciate
I'm
that.
enjoying it very much. Theater 3 is a terrific organization, and I'm so happy to be associated with it.
We're happy to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I've had a good time interviewing you, and I'm sure we'll be doing it again with some other show.
Well, thank you.
And now I'd like to welcome John Day to Welcome to the Theater.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Tell us all about how you got started in the theater as a child, whenever it was, or as a teenager.
I got started acting about 5 years ago.
Okay.
I had a literary background. I knew how to sort of interpret stories and understand characters, but I had never gotten out of my head really within and expressed it on stage. So I actually sort of just took a kind of 101 acting boot camp weekend in Somerville, and got the bug.
Wow.
And I had the opportunity to sort of, I had a significant change in my life, and I had the opportunity to try and see if I could get into it, and that's how I started.
You have a very theatric voice. I'm sure the directors have
Yeah.
picked up on that. Oh,
Yeah,
wow,
they
what
like
a
my
great
loud
baritone.
voice.
Yeah, definitely.
I can project.
And what was the first play you did after the boot camp?
I did a play in Somerville. Henry IV was the first thing I ever did.
And
I
you
played
had,
Westmoreland.
and so you had got the Brit accent, and
Yes, did all of that.
wow,
So,
that's a big.
but I decided not to really follow up on trying to do much Shakespeare because I just felt it was a little late in life to get doing that.
started. I
Yeah.
see.
I had a really good opportunity in Winchester at the Winchester Players, which has gone dark now. But
Yeah.
I was given the opportunity to play Lyman Wyeth in Other Desert Cities, which was a really good part and really sort of got me going into community theater around here.
What's your character like in this show?
Yes, well, Titus. Titus is somebody who finds himself a stranger in a strange land, and he finds that all of his money and his power has really no influence in the environment he gets into. And so Titus is a type of character that starts out feeling that he is in control of things, and as things happen, he sort of unravels.
He's a senator.
He's a senator, yes, and so it's fun to develop that because you get a character who really changes over the course of the play.
Have you ever played a character that was like him?
Oh yeah, and the people, they like me to play those characters.
I see. I see.
I'm sort of always playing one of these corporate or senatorial type of guys.
Not typecasting.
No, well, I try to stay away from it, but I tend to get cast with these kinds of roles. So, but never quite one that has changed so much as Titus changes.
Yeah.
So it is fun to play a role that you can really work with, and seeing how this character goes from a very confident, secure kind of guy to being like,
Oh,
what is happening? Yeah.
Yeah, so the being at the mental institution has an effect on him, even if he's not a patient
Yes, yes, you get to where you wonder who's really crazy.
there. And I think maybe that might have been the author's
I think so.
intent as well. I agree. Do you have plans in the future for a show that's particularly that you're going to be auditioning for soon, or after this is over? Or?
I don't. They sort of, I do some commercial work and some film work, and I'm with casting agencies around, and sort of I just whatever comes up.
Great.
From time to time. I certainly am always looking to audition for a play.
What was the literary background that you spoke of that sort of got you?
I just spent a lot of time, the people that I was around when I was in college and when I was younger. My sister's a writer. I was around a lot of teachers, and I just, so I sort of was immersed in that kind of book culture for a long time.
And then you just grew from there.
Yeah, well, it's like I say, that was always, I mean, I knew I was able to understand characters and narrative and all of that, and but I really wanted to be able to express it. It became a sort of a therapeutic thing, actually, in some ways, to be able to get out on stage and express what you could know in your head.
I think many of us in the theater find that a therapeutic thing as well as a relaxing thing, and getting a chance to try on other roles. And
absolutely,
you know,
I'm having a lot of fun with Titus.
Good. Well, it shows. Definitely. Thank you so much for coming down and being interviewed today.
You're welcome. I enjoyed it.
Good. And now I'd like to welcome Bob Amici to Welcome to the Theater.
Thank you.
So tell us all about how you got started in theater. What was the first thing that you did?
So in theater, everything I've ever done acting-wise has been on haunted hayrides, referred to as my mobile stage. I've been doing that for about 27 seasons. And I decided during one stint, a friend of mine was looking for an actor for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest in Hudson. And I wrote back, it was a Facebook thing, I wrote back and said, huh. And she said, really? Are you thinking about it? I said, I don't know, why not? And so that was about 4 or 5 years ago.
And you were you a mental patient in that?
I was the janitor, I was Turkle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was Scatman Crothers' role in the movie.
So you've gone from one mental hospital
Exactly.
to another mental hospital.
A little classier this one is than the other one.
And when you're doing like at Witch's World, are you in a costume?
Witch's Woods? Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
Witch's
yeah, I don't
Woods.
look like this.
Okay.
I look very different. Lord Bob is a very different character than I play in this show.
Tell us about the character. What is he in this show? What's he like?
Hannibal? Hannibal's great fun. Hannibal is a nerd. He was a statistician and he got fired. And for some reason he believes he is a magnificent player of the violin.
And he isn't?
I have never held a violin in my life, so we'll see how this goes.
Okay.
I'm having a blast with that, by the way.
You having any desire to actually take up the instrument when the show
No,
is done?
you know, it's funny, when I auditioned, I actually do play the piano. And I thought about Jeffrey, because Jeffrey plays the piano. I thought, well, at least I could actually do that. But the violin would be more fun, so.
Yeah. Well, you entertain the rest of the patients, for sure. So in the show, each patient has a delusion of some sort. And tell us about what happens as regards the other patient's delusions. Do you recognize that they are deluded, your character, or do you challenge them?
Yeah, so I actually think Hannibal is the one who knows what everybody's issues are. I'm not sure he knows his own, because he does think he's good at the violin.
Got it.
And I don't think he understands why he got fired. But he does definitely know fairies. He recognizes what's going on with Florence.
Fairy is one of the characters in the show.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm just telling them.
Okay. And he certainly knows Jeffrey, because we had that conversation with Mrs. Savage about it. So.
And I'm playing Jeffrey in the show, and you and I are the only two guy patients.
Yeah. we hold up the male end.
We hold up the male end of the mental hospital for sure. Yeah,
we're outnumbered.
I know. I know. Absolutely. And do you have any plans for a specific show that you want to audition for that's coming up after this one ends, or are you just going to see what comes your way?
Yeah, so I would like to. I've actually started this trek a couple years ago, so I've been in 2 shows in Hudson. I've been at a couple at Cannon. This is my first time at Theater 3. I'm very excited about it, because I've always wanted to see what it was like. I've had friends here before. And I'd like to see what else is around. Some of them have been musicals, not that I can sing really well, but I can.
But you can chorus your way through.
Exactly.
Good.
I can ensemble my way through.
Well, I can tell the audience that you're a pleasure to be on stage with.
Oh, thank you.
It's
thank you, Jeffrey. It's fun playing with you.
Good. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And now I'd like to welcome to the theater, Leslie Wagner.
Hi, Ed. Nice to be here.
Nice to have you. Tell us how you got your start in the theater.
Oh gosh, as a child, I just always had that little theatrical interest, and even in grammar school, I tried out for plays, and even when I played in the backyard, I think I put on my own musicals, singing and walking around. But then in high school, that was one of my extracurricular activities, was to, try out for plays, and I was in several. And when I went to college at Northeastern, I was a theater major, communications also, and I did, theater there. I was they had the Silver Mask, and it was a green room everyone hung around with. So it was like a nice little group through my years at Northeastern. And then I stopped. My sights were on getting married, having a family, and but maybe about the year 2000, I kind of woke up, my kids were older, and I thought to myself, what the heck do I do?
Yeah.
And I saw an ad in the paper locally for the Concord Players.
Yeah.
They had auditions for roomers.
Yes.
And we had to do a monologue, so I had to go to the library and I searched out a Neil Simon monologue, and I auditioned. I felt like a fish out of water, a stranger. I didn't know what I was doing, but I did get cast, the smallest role in the play, Officer Pudney. And once I started, and we had a great cast, I was like, oh my God, this is what I do. This is what I've always loved to do, and I never looked back. I just kept saying, I'm going to keep doing it and get my resume larger than one role, and I did, and I've been pretty successful working at theaters in this area and Theater 3.
Yes,
I've worked with you numerous times.
I know.
Stepping Out was one of my favorites, and you helped me with tap dancing. And other roles too. So it's always a delight to be back at this theater.
Do you do musicals now at all, or
I do occasionally if it's a musical that, I mean, it's not my comfort zone. I love to sing. I think my vocal is okay, but I don't feel quite as confident in that, and I find it, especially with the dancing, getting a little bit more for my muscle memory and brain.
Yes.
But I would do it, with the right thing. I was just in Fiddler.
Yes.
At Theater 3,
Yes,
and I played Yenta the Matchmaker.
I know.
I especially
remember.
love to do characters.
Yes.
Different types of people.
And you're doing a character now.
Yes, I'm doing a different kind of character, a little more glamorous than Yenta, younger, self-absorbed, and married 6 times, I think.
Yes.
And loves to wear a tiara.
Yes.
But she's funny, and I think she and her brothers, Samuel and Titus, bring a lot of, humor
Definitely.
to the play.
Definitely.
And it's a nice, charming piece.
So you're having fun with it.
I am.
Yeah.
I am.
Good.
I think, once we have an audience in front of us and I can hear just the
You will
laughter,
hear it,
the laughter
for
I've
sure.
heard.
Instead of just us backstage laughing at you.
Yes, but that helps just to hear that.
Yeah,
That-
well, the director doesn't like that.
no, that's all right. But no, I am enjoying it, and I'm enjoying working with you as Jeffrey.
Yes, that's
So,
right. We're out there. So, do you have a specific show that you're going to be auditioning for when this comes?
Not really. I'm taking it slow.
Yeah.
It's been kind of a rough year personally in some ways, so I'm just, taking a slow walk back into theater. I didn't do a show. I think the last show I did was November of 2017. I did Moon Over Buffalo at Quantapowhat. I played Ethel, the old lady.
Yeah.
So as you can see, I go from one end to the other.
Great.
And as long as I can still do the glam roles too, it's nice. I don't want to always play an old lady. Because eventually I'm going to be an old lady.
Yeah. Oh, gee.
But nothing in my sights. I would like to do something meaningful.
Yeah.
I would like, I'm not sort of at the stage, I just don't want to do anything.
Right.
And if it's either very humorous, a good character, something with a lot of feeling, and I wouldn't mind a role where I could cry and have something emotional.
The other side, rather than just
Exactly.
rather than farce or
I like to go both ends. So
That's
we'll
good.
see.
That's good.
I'm interested to see what the new season will bring for all the theater groups,
Yes.
Theater 3 particularly,
Yeah.
and then I'll
You
take
figure
it.
out what works for you.
That
Makes good sense.
Yeah, but it's always fun, and it's a good escape from
the rest of
the
our
rest of
lives.
life.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the camaraderie especially is wonderful.
It is.
So
I agree.
yes,
Well, thank you so much.
thank you, Ed. It's been a pleasure.
And now I'd like to welcome to the theater Sally Kindleberger.
Hi.
Hi. And tell us about how you first got involved with theater.
Well, I've been involved with theater since I was a really little kid.
Tell us about that.
And my big joke is that in the 2nd grade, I was in a Mall in the Night Visitors because I was the only one that had a recorder. So I cast myself in the leading role. But then all through grade school, I was in choruses. And then in high school, I acted in so many different plays, and then I did summer stock in high school with the Peterborough Players in New Hampshire for 3 years. And then I was a college drama major. And so it's been right. And then when I moved back to Boston, I worked with lots of different theaters in Boston. Many of them are kaput now. They've gone. And then I did summer stock.
Not because of you, though. In spite of you.
Well, maybe, I don't know. And then I also did summer stock on the Cape, and for a while I was an equity member with Wheelock Family Theater, and I've sort of given that up because there aren't enough roles for old people in equity, so I'm back to doing community theater, which I've done a lot too. I worked with Winchester and the Concord Players and a bunch of other ones. What's the one? Volks in so I've done a bunch of different things, but then I haven't been on stage for a long time, so I'm coming back to it again. So
but you have been doing like extras in movies.
I've been doing extra work in movies, not a lot, because I get to play people crossing the street and people in nursing homes, and that's about it.
Okay. And now
I did have I had an extra job in which I'm actually getting royalties for, which was on TV. And I got to be a protester outside a abortion clinic. And because I said, "Pray for your baby" several times, that added lines and added $1,000 to my paycheck.
Wow.
So that was wild. But that's the only speaking role I've had in the extra work field. So.
Wow. And well, tell us about your character in this show.
I love my character in the show. I took my character in the show without really knowing the show.
A leap of faith.
It's a danger to not read the play beforehand, but I just heard about it the day before. So I looked up, I Googled it, I got a general gist of it, but I didn't know anything about it. And so I ended up, I thought, this character sounds really interesting. Little did I know she only does one thing throughout the play. She's a very angry, very sad, hurt. She's damaged. She's probably the most mentally ill person among the inmates in the show. And her husband walked out on her after telling her to shut up. She shut up and hasn't really spoken any words to anybody in 20 years. He left her, went to Japan. He's probably having affairs in Japan. I don't know. But she's very sad, and she wants attention, and she doesn't know how to get it. So she just spews all the time, all the things that she hates in the world. And it's very sad, actually. I find her, I'm getting to know her better and better as I rehearse. But it's been the hardest part, maybe one of the hardest parts I've ever had to do, because I've had to find variety. Or tried to find. I don't know whether you think I'm finding variety. I'm not sure. In just lists of words that don't really go together of all the things she hates. So,
and then there's some transition.
She moves as Mrs. Savage, the lead character, comes in. She sees parallels between her own life and Mrs. Savage. Mrs. Savage doesn't like her children, and it's okay that she doesn't like her children. And so Mrs. Patty, myself, realizes that, okay, here's somebody, and this is the first person who pays attention to her, who looks at her as a real person and not a bunch of words being spewed. So she understands her, kind of. And so that forms the beginnings of a very tentative relationship, but a good one.
And that changes the relationship of the other characters toward you. In a way, because they see that, and toward Mrs. Savage, because they see that the two of you
are beginning to connect.
And
they start to realize that there's a core of a person behind all this hateful spewing of words.
So it's very touching for the rest of us on stage when we see that happen.
No, it's I'm really enjoying it. And I was scared, actually, coming back to being since I haven't done any real roles, and used to be a elementary school teacher.
Yes, yeah.
And when I taught kindergarten, I could do matinees because I was only working half-time. And also I was teaching drama, so the school thought it was okay for me to go off and do matinees at Wheelock. Then I got a new job as a second grade teacher working full time, so I couldn't go off and do. So for a long time, I really haven't done anything in terms of speaking roles and stuff, but it's always been such a core part of my personality. I think of myself as teacher/actress. And I'm still teaching kids. I do improv classes in Lincoln. So
that's terrific.
For kids, yeah.
Great. Well,
So.
thank you so much for coming down today to be interviewed.
It has been so much fun. Thank you. And
You're welcome. Sure.
Oh, I forgot to introduce my love. This is my child, Lexi.
Hello, Lexi. Welcome.
I'm Bob Amici. I play Hannibal in The Curious Savage, and it's my turn now to turn the tables on our interviewer and talk to Ed Knights.
Thank you.
So now I get to ask you the questions that you were asking everybody else.
Here it comes.
Bob in front of a camera and a microphone, this is dangerous.
Okay. I'm forewarned then. All right.
So tell us your role in the show and tell us your role in the organization as well.
Okay.
So
my role in the show is I play Jeffrey. Jeffrey is a former military officer in World War II who had a parachute battalion and I don't know what size, but anyway, he had a number of soldiers that were also parachuting, and there was an air disaster. He bailed out, and none of his troops survived. He wasn't hurt, but he thinks he was hurt, and so he is convinced that he has terrible scarring on one side of his face, and he doesn't. So he has a fixed delusion, as do a number of the other characters, such as you, with the fixed delusion that you can play the violin. So
Why, statisticians can't play the violin?
So it's PTSD.
Okay. So I was always curious, why the scar? Of all injuries you could have had, why did they have you with a scar?
Because at one level he feels that he deserves to be damaged in a visible way, that would interfere with him being able to do what he can do, which is he's a concert pianist, and he never gets to perform other than one performance when he is sort of having his first episode, in front of a big audience. Then the war breaks out, and so it's that he just doesn't want to. He feels he deserved to be hurt, right. I guess.
So it's visible, and it prevents you from doing what you should be doing, but it's not something you can. It's not like a broken arm or a missing limb or something like that. It has to be something
that would show and would prevent him from doing also what he wants to do. He could play the piano by himself, but not with anyone else around, and so he can't share his skill with anyone. In a way, he's punishing himself.
Right.
And in those days, they didn't sort that out very well.
Yep.
And in fact, the evidence of that is the other people there who have fixed delusions as well. So.
And we're all punishing ourselves.
Yes.
In one way, shape, or form.
Absolutely.
Yep. You play the piano?
I do, but I'm not outstanding at it, but I studied for a number of years, and then I went off to boarding school. It wasn't an option anymore. And then when I got all done with medical school, I studied voice and tap dancing, and got back into doing theater, and so that's where my musical outlet now is more in being in music, musical shows, that kind of stuff.
What other shows you been in? I know you've been in a lot.
I've been in a lot of shows. So favorite roles, I played the Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz a couple times, and the Tin Man, because he has tin feet, gets to tap dance. So I get to tap dance with Dorothy, and that's been a lot of fun. Now I mostly tap dance with my granddaughter and teach her new moves, and which is a lot of fun. But there's not too much call for a 68-year-old tap dancer in your usual shows. And I played Bobby in Crazy for You up in Nashua at Actors Singers, and that's a big tap dancing role. And I played Billy in 42nd Street, which is another big tap dancing role. So those were a lot of fun. Those are some of the most fun I've had in musicals, has been those kinds of plays.
So I'm relatively new to community theater, and I've learned a phrase, the triple threat. Apparently, you're a triple threat.
Well,
you can sing, you can dance, and you can act.
I was a quadruple threat because I had a car. And so, you know, I often was playing roles that probably should have been at least 10 or 15, 20 years younger than me. But how many tap dancing men can you find that can get to the theater without mass transit? So that was an advantage.
And you're president as well.
Well, now I'm
so
president
many
of the community
hats
theater.
you wear, huh?
Yeah. So being the president of the theater is a rotating job, which I'm rotating through, and you're elected by the rest of the board, and basically in some ways the buck stops here, but it's also the person who kind of tries to keep people on task, and it's a challenge in a not-for-profit organization because nobody's getting salary, and so people are volunteering, and you need to find folks who will do it and encourage them to do it, and gently guide them if things aren't going as well as they should be. And I've been involved with a lot of other volunteer organizations, a number of them over the years. I was the American Cancer Society, the president for that for the local areas. I was the chairman of the board of the Elliott Mental Health Center for a while, which is the 9 towns around Concord, and actually I was on the board of Harvard Pilgrim, which was a 501c3 for a while. So I've had a lot of board experience, and I enjoy doing this, but I also like to be on stage too and directing.
So when I auditioned or heard about the show and got a chance to audition, got the role, I saw the cast list, and I was telling some friends of mine who was in the show, and I mentioned you. And immediately the response was, Ed, wow, what a great guy. You're going to love working with him. So you're known far and wide, especially with apparently with all your involvement in everything that you do. So I'm telling you, I enjoyed having you, being part of the crazy cast with you.
Well, I enjoy it too. And we stick up for each other out there.
We have to. We got to walk around
we look at
carpet.
each other and say, what are they doing over there? So, yeah, it's good. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
It's been a pleasure to be interviewed by you.
Yeah, and I'm having fun interviewing.
Good.
I have a career in interviewing.
Yes, absolutely. Good. Okay. And now I'd like to welcome to the theater Deana Lander, our director. Welcome to the theater.
Thank you.
So tell us about how you first got started in theater as a kid, whatever. What was your first thing?
My first role was Miss Hannigan and Annie in 7th grade in Arlington.
Wow.
And that's when I was bit by the theater bug, and then went to summer theater school for 2 years after that in Waltham at Chapel Hill Chauncey Hall, the summer theater program.
And when you finished with that, and when did you start doing community theater?
I started again when I was back in 1998. That probably dates me a little bit. With Open Door Theater, I did Music Man. And then I did a show here, Anna Green Gables, with Sean Knights. That was back then, and I've been doing it ever since.
What led you to start doing directing? How did you decide?
I've always wanted to try it, and I was in the show in Fitchburg last year with Ed as my director.
Yes.
I played Fairy May, so it was a show I was familiar with, so I was comfortable. And it's given me a chance to do things a little bit differently, because we did it when it was modern times, and now it's in the 50s, and I'm really enjoying it. It's a lot of fun.
So I know you've also been involved in helping to choose the costumes and things like that. So what were you looking for as a general theme as far as the costuming goes?
Definitely 1950s. I think that Lily Mae won the costume lottery. She got some great costumes. Poor Fairy May has kind of a few crazy costumes. But I was trying to look for something that was in the 50s, and that it was very interesting to do the research to see whether, you know, Dr. Emmett would wear a pantsuit or Mrs. Patty would wear jeans or overalls. And it's been really interesting to dig through the costume closet to see what we could find, too. It's been a lot of fun.
And I understand you've done some adapting with the set in order to use the previous set. How
We
did that
did.
go?
It was actually pretty good. We already had the bookshelf for My Fair Lady, so we were able to move it around a little bit to make a few changes. My brother Keith, who works out in LA, came and helped me design the set. So he came down one day and we kind of sketched out everything we wanted, and he put it on a little program that he has, and I was able to go from there.
I know you have an interest in and work with older items like antiques and maybe not quite antiques, but things maybe from the 50s and 60s. Was that helpful for you in deciding what you wanted to have up on stage?
It was. I was able to find some vintage radios to go through and some books, and I kind of had a vision. I had actually won a painting in an auction, and I kind of based the set off of that painting. So it's on the stage above the piano.
Oh, okay. I'm in the show, and I didn't realize
Yeah,
that. So
yeah.
now
I found that in an auction, and,
that's
and I
great.
said that's what I kind of want to base the whole set design around.
If you're telling somebody about the show who's never heard of it before and wants to know about it, what do you like to say as sort of a summary or as a hint of what's going to happen?
Yeah, I always say that it's a very funny, touching show about a woman whose children don't think that she's spending her inheritance the way she should, and it's her relationship between the stepchildren and her relationship between the residents at the home, and how everybody kind of intersects, and she learns more about herself from the residents than she does from her stepkids.
So you're getting to hold the bear.
I am.
And when you were Fairy May, did you get to hold the bear?
I did. I talked to the bear a lot when I was Fairy May.
So those of you who are watching this, if you want to know more about the bear, you're going to have to come see the show.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to interview you.
Thank you.
I hope you've enjoyed this edition of Welcome to the Theater. As you can see, the cast is a lot of fun, and I'm sure you'd enjoy the performance as well. If you want to know what the little teddy bear is all about, you need to come see the show. The performances are starting on January the 18th and run for 2 weekends with evening performances at 8 p.m. and matinees at 2 p.m. Tickets are available at 978-263-9070.